Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll get you down to that point, and then you
Yeah,
can
it's
go.
it's a very simple addition.
The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board, as duly designated secret lead agency, hereby acts as follows in the matter of coordinated environmental quality review of a proposed action known as Grassmere Farm Hotel. 1. Consents to the applicant's request that the preparation and submission of a generic environmental impact statement be authorized. 2. Accepts, subject to the below additions, the GEIS outline scope, Grassmere Hotel, Farm Hotel, Rhinebeck, New York, prepared by Greenman, Pedersen, Inc., GPI, and dated August 12, 2013, as a suitable scope to follow in the applicant's preparation and the secret lead agency's review as to its adequacy of a DEIS for the proposed action. This means basically that we still have approval of the scope before the DEIS is prepared, correct?
What was that?
That the planning board will have final approval over this scope before the DEIS is prepared. In essence, we're not tonight approving the scope because we haven't seen it,
Yeah,
and it's going to be altered.
You're approving the scope subject to the modifications that are cited in 2.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
But the scope becomes the basis for ultimately evaluating the sufficiency or the adequacy of the environmental statement that's submitted.
I just want to make sure that the planning board reviews the scope first, and if any additions or anything else is to be made to it before the applicant goes forward.
It was distributed on. Did not the board receive copies of the scope?
I don't recall seeing it, but it may be that I just overlooked it. That's why I would just like to modify this to ensure...
Hold on, let's back up a section.
You can see.
Maybe you...
Because with Ray coming in with potential comments, perhaps other agencies, things like that.
No, agency comments follow you accept it, and then you distribute it.
Right, but then we accept it for distribution.
Then you would modify it based on agency comments.
Right. I just want to make sure this is not we're not approving tonight the scope. We're giving them to then go forth and DEIS.
You won't be approving the final scope until there's the agency input.
Okay, I'm good with that.
So you're circulating the preliminary scope, if you
Okay.
will.
Everyone understand that?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I will continue.
Okay.
All righty. The applicant's preparation and the secret lead agency's review as to its adequacy of a DGEIS for the proposed action. Requirement that DGEIS address any comment offered by any involved and/or interested agency in response to the planning board's July, whatever that was, for our notice of intent to serve as lead agency, with further requirements that copies of such responses be set forth in the DGEIS. Requirement that the consistency or lack thereof with the proposal with all applicable coastal policies as set forth within the town's LWRP be addressed.
Modifications, if any, to address comments on the GEIS outline scope by project engineer Raymond Jerkowski.
3, directs the planning board clerk to distribute or by either regular mail or in-house delivery a copy of the GEIS scope outline once modified, accompanied by a copy of this resolution and a transmittal letter with stated opportunity for comment from the planning board chairman to each of the parties recipient of the above cited notice of intent. Could I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
And once that, these modifications are made, the GEIS outline is circulated, opportunity for comment by the lead agency, the other agencies provided, you will then reaffirm the scope as it exists at this point in time, or modify it in accordance with the request of the other agencies that you're serving here as lead agency.
Excellent. All right then.
I guess the only question that I would have is that, from a timeline perspective, would we be able to hopefully have all the comments back before the next board meeting?
I would think it would be appropriate to, start off one, we have to secure Ray's comments, which I trust will be, sometime certainly within the next couple of days. And a 15-day period for agency response should be more than adequate.
Yeah, I would think so.
transmittal.
And also make sure
And
that...
while I am away, I will take care of that.
Very good.
Okay.
And I also to make sure that all planning board members have access to all this information so they can all review it, so that they're prepared to decide whether they feel it's adequate for our next meeting. Thank you. Moving right along. Joanne Gray and John Lyons, 224 Morton Road, special use permit. Sketch plan conference and initial presentation of application for special use permit under Town Code Chapter 125 zoning, Section 12540A3, development near water body to authorize construction of a 384 square foot accessory storage building on an 8.504 acre parcel in historic preservation, HP 20 district, and the town's local waterfront revitalization area, subject to request for area variance submitted to the ZBA concerning the aggregate square footage of roofed accessory structures. Planning board processing as timely under town code and seeker.
Correct. I provided you with a lot of written information. I don't know what kind of detail you want me to get into in terms of describing the project. It's an application for a storage shed on the premises where my wife and I live. The address is 224 Morton Road. Our property is a little bit under 9 acres in area. We access our property from Morton Road. Our property slopes down from Morton Road down to the river. Right now, we have a house and an accessory structure on the property. The accessory structure is a 2-story building with a garage on the ground floor and a loft space above, which is finished. Our house and garage are not visible from Morton Road, except the very top of the roof is visible during leaf-off conditions. The purpose of this shed is just to provide us with more storage room for gardening supplies and tools and things like that. The dimensions of the shed are 12 feet by 32. It's going to be a prefabricated building. We're getting it from Bayhorse Gazebos out in Milan. It'll be constructed on a concrete slab, 6 inches in depth and the same dimensions as the structure. Structure's about 12 feet at its highest point. It will be constructed of materials that are designed to match the existing buildings on our house. So it's going to be a clapboard style siding. There'll be a cupola on the roof to match the cupola that's on the roof of our garage. The shingles will match the existing buildings. The paint scheme will match the existing buildings. There are 3 doors along the front, all Dutch-style doors. The center door has a window in the top section. There are windows in each of the walls. It'll be fitted out for electricity, but it will not have water and wastewater facilities. It is visible slightly from the Hudson River during the winter. It's visible also slightly from our neighbors Bob and Gloria Fox. It's screened for the most part by vegetation and the ruins of the Ellerslie Estate barn. There's a photo in my packet that shows you what the view is. We've spoken extensively with Bob and Gloria about it, and I believe they're going to be sending a letter of support for the application, so they're not concerned about it, and it's not visible from any other neighbor.
Okay. Any questions for John?
No. Nope.
Okey-doke. Well, I have a resolution.
And the public hearing will be 6:55,
Ah, very good.
if you're going to let John off that easy.
Yeah, why not?
Make him work a little more.
Okay. The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board hereby acts as follows. On the August 4th, 2013 application by Joanne Gray and John Lyons for special use permit pursuant to Town Code 125 zoning, Section 12540A3, development near water body, in the matter of the proposed construction of a 384 square foot accessory storage building on 8.504 acre parcel, otherwise being 224
224.
Morton Road in the Historic Preservation HP 20 district in the town's local waterfront revitalization area. All is depicted in architectural elevations and otherwise described in the application and supporting documentation, including narrative, short EAF, and coastal assessment form, and subject to an application for area variance submitted to the ZBA concerning the maximum aggregate square footage of roofed accessory structures permitted on the parcel. A, upon the applicant's acknowledgement that the planning board may not authorize the intended construction unless the ZBA grants the above cited area variance, accepts the application at this time as adequate for planning board consultant and public review. B, classifies the proposed action as described in the application as an unlisted action under secret for which coordinated environmental quality review is neither required nor to be conducted. Delegates, planning board members,
I'll go.
Woody and Sharon. Okay, throw my glasses on, I can't see that far. Woody and Sharon to conduct a field visit to the project site and report their observations at the time of public hearing. D, refers the application to the Town Conservation Advisory Board for review and comment. E, refers the application to the Town Waterfront Advisory Committee for review of consistency with pertinent coastal policies as set forth within the town's LWRP. Schedules a public hearing on application for Monday, September 16th, I believe it's about 6:55 p.m. And directs the clerk to provide or otherwise cause notice and posting thereof pursuant to the requirements set forth within Town Code, Chapter 125 zoning. G, due to the limited nature of the matter subject to this application, including the absence of any proposed development and without prejudice to the planning board's consideration of any input received prior to or at the public hearing, authorizes the planning consultant to prepare working drafts of an EAF Part 2 negative declaration under seeker and conditional approval resolution for review and consideration by the board when and if timely. Could I hear a resolution to approve?
So moved.
Could I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Any opposed? Very good.
Okay,
See
and
you.
just to bring you up to date, I've already submitted the variance application. It's pending before the ZBA. The public hearing's Wednesday night of this week. And also, we sat down with Jeff and the CAB members and, presented and discussed it, and I'm sure they'll be having their opinion for you as well. And Woody and Sharon, if you have my email address?
What is it, John?
What-
No, what is it?
JLYONS @grantlyons.com. If you guys email me, we'll make a time that's convenient for you to come on down.
What
Take a
is
look around.
convenient for you?
Any morning probably is probably best, but I don't have my calendar with me at
Well,
the
that's all right,
moment.
no, but just time-wise, morning as in like 9?
Yeah, sure,
Okay,
that'd be
cool.
great.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's not, if it's a weekend, I can do that, but not a weekend.
6 a.m. will work too.
So, any weekday at that time would be fine also. Weekday or weekend, whichever suits your schedule.
You're next to that big stone foundation, that old barn?
Just down behind it, yeah.
Huge old building.
Yeah, it is,
Good
that's
for you.
really
Is
magnificent.
Saturday good for
Okay.
you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
This week coming is,
Okay, next on the agenda,
because I'm not,
we have the Office of J. William Commissar LLS for Alan Ryan III and Alan Ryan IV, Melissa Kaiser and Sally Shaw, New York State Route 9 and Mill Road subdivision plat, sketch plan conference and initial presentation of application for subdivision plat approval under Town Code, Chapter 101, subdivision of land, to authorize lot line alteration between parcel 1A and parcel 2, filed map number given being tax number also given, in the rural agricultural RA10 district in the town's local waterfront revitalization area, resulting in a 10.35 acre residential building lot and a 31.15 acres agricultural use parcel. Planning board processing is timely under Town Code and seeker. And who is presenting this?
And I'm Kay Commissar from the Surveyor's Office. The Ryan family owns two parcels with frontage on Route 9, Park Avenue, and Mill Road. They have been farming these properties for years, but their plans, I guess, have changed and they've decided to sell these two pieces. We are here for the purpose of making a simple line change between the two parcels to give the smaller piece, that's parcel 1A, frontage on Mill Road. It currently has no road frontage. They understand that in the RA10 zone, any parcel requires frontage of 400 feet. The 130 feet that is being requested here with the lot line change, they understand is not sufficient and will require action on the part of the zoning board as well as the planning board. I believe that the proposed purchaser for the larger parcel intends to keep farming it, And I understand that the person thinking of buying the smaller piece intends to build a house there.
It's my understanding that since a variance is required, we're still not creating any greater nonconformity here, so that shouldn't be an issue, although the planning board has to realize that no building permit will be able to be issued unless the variance is granted in terms of road frontage. Any questions for the applicant?
How much road frontage were you requesting?
130 feet.
Any other questions?
There's no road frontage at all on this lot? So is this a flag going up the side?
When this property was originally subdivided back in 1999, this piece was supposed to be made part and parcel with this one. For some reason, that never happened. They have continued to exist as two separate tax lots, this one having no frontage. So, as I said, in order to move things along, they're just trying to do this small change.
So that parcel without the road frontage was cut off from another piece of property?
Years ago, I believe in the packet that we submitted on this project, we put a copy of the previous subdivision map, the third piece down here. One being, to be very honest, I don't recall what the acreage was, but the lot line change back then created three pieces, one of which was intended to be part and parcel with Roman numeral 2.
I guess the question I have, and I guess this is an art question, is I'm guessing, and without looking at the resolution, I don't know, but one of the conditions of approval would have been a consolidation deed to ensure that that was indeed annexed into that other property, and if that wasn't done, would that in any way have any impact upon that original subdivision art?
I didn't research the question, Michael, but it appears that that situation would not have been created without requirement for a merger deed.
Yeah.
And it further appears that no one at town level policed the question of whether or not that merger deed was filed, nor moved that the plat be stricken from the records of the town clerk, the county clerk, which would have been the procedure. I think at this point in time, I think you basically accept the situation as it is.
Okay.
The applicant is moving to correct the situation by establishing road frontage and include in your any consideration given by the planning board the applicant's acknowledgement that a lot frontage variance will be required for parcel 1A, and frankly that you can't act, the board's not going to be able to act until the ZBA acts.
Actually, since it's already really non-conforming because it doesn't have any road frontage, we're just adding some road frontage, we're not making it any more non-conforming.
You're adding road frontage, but you're adding less than the requisite road frontage under the zoning law.
But it's making it more conforming. I mean, in other words, they need the variance before we can act because...
Yes,
Okay.
because technically they do not have an existing lot of record because it's not a legal parcel.
Well-
It would have to be a legally conforming parcel.
But legally they do.
No, you don't. No,
Exactly.
in order to qualify as an existing lot of record for zoning and development purposes, it would have to be legally created and legally existing, and it doesn't.
Didn't we legally subdivide it back in 1999?
No, it obviously was subdivided with the requirement that it be merged, as Mrs. Commissar indicated, that it be merged, that those two parcels be merged, and that merger apparently never
So
occurred.
there's a distinction-
Clearly never occurred.
I
It's
was
not apparent.
actually, when they called us to start this process, quite surprised to find that this had never been
Yeah.
combined.
Yeah.
So there's a distinction between what could be a tax parcel recognized by the county for tax purposes and a lot of record for
There's always-
building purposes.
There's always a difference.
Okay.
You know, county's got woodlots as marked as tax parcels all over the place without
Are
any
they being
access.
farmed now? What are they growing?
Yes,
The corn?
corn.
Well, I do have a resolution here, now that I've sorted this all out.
The only thing I'm adding to the resolution, Michael, we were talking about accepting the application in A. It's upon the applicant's acknowledgement that a lot frontage variance will be required for parcel A prior to PB approval of the subdivision,
Okay, and you're
of the
adding
proposed
that,
subdivision.
you're adding under section A?
Yes.
Okay, when I get to that, I'll have you read that into the record. Okay. The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board hereby acts as follows. On the August 1st, 2013 application by the Office of J. William Commissar, LLS, for Alan Ryan III, Alan Ryan IV, Melissa Kaiser, and Sally Shaw for sketch plan review and subdivision plat approval under Town Code Chapter 101, subdivision of land to authorize a lot line alteration between parcel 1A and parcel 2 in the rural agricultural RA10 district and the town's local waterfront revitalization area, the result being the creation of a 10.35 acre residential building lot and a 31.15 acre parcel intended for agricultural use. All is depicted on the surveyor's map entitled Lot Line Revision between parcel 1A and parcel 2, prepared by J. William Commissar, LLS, and dated July 9th, 2013, and otherwise described in a short EAF coastal assessment form and other supporting documentation. A.
Waives the conduct of a separate sketch plan conference before the planning board accepts the application at this time is adequate for planning board consultant and public review upon the applicant's acknowledgement that a lot frontage variance will be required for parcel 1A prior to planning board approval of the application for subdivision plat approval.
B, classifies the proposed action as described in the application as an unlisted action under seeker for which coordinated environmental quality review is not required and will not be conducted. Delegates planning board members who wants to go on a, wants to go?
I'll go, it's up the road.
Oh, Sharon? I'll go and take a look and see how you did a lot without any road frontage. Okay. To conduct a field visit to the subdivision site and report their observations at the time of public hearing. D, refers the application to the Town Conservation Advisory Board for review and comment. E, refers the application to the Town Waterfront Advisory Committee for review of consistency with pertinent coastal policies as set forth within the town's LWRP. Schedules a public hearing on the application for Monday, September 16th at 7:05? 7:05. And directs the clerk to provide or otherwise cause notice and posting thereof pursuant to the requirements set forth within Town Code Chapter 101, subdivision of land. Further directs the clerk to distribute the agricultural data statement as required under the New York State Agriculture and Markets Law. H, advises the applicant in draft of consolidation or merger deeds as will be required for recording in the Dutchess County Clerk's Office upon filing of the subdivision plat, if approved, should be prepared and submitted to the planning board for review as to its sufficiency. I, due to the limited nature of the matter subject to this application, including the absence of any proposed development and without prejudice to the planning board's consideration of any input received prior to or at the public hearing, authorizes...
Or action taken by the ZBA.
Or action taken by the ZBA, authorizes the planning consultant to prepare working drafts of an EAF Part 2, negative declaration under seeker, and conditional approval resolution for review and consideration by the board when and if timely. Could I hear a motion to approve?
So move.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Could I have your phone number so I can get in touch with you so we can set up the site visit? 485
2626.
2626. And your name?
K-A-Y, Commissar.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be in touch. All right, next on the agenda, Rockledge 49...
No,
No?
Charles Wiles and Ralph Catella
Oh.
subdivision.
Someone checked that one off already by mistake.
No, that was the...
That was me. That was me.
That was the variance, not the...
Okay, cool. Charles Wiles and Ralph Catella.
Okay. Also a comment, just a prefatory comment on this concerning the variance. The variance in this particular case is unrelated to the question of subdivision. The subdivision deals with a lot line alteration. The variance simply deals with the placement of the house on one of the resulting lots. So there's no condition or contingency built into your subdivision your resolution.
In this
Your
case,
subdivision could proceed
without
whether
the
or
ZBA.
not the frontage variance were granted.
This is Charles Wiles, Ralph Catella, 28 and 15 Peacock Road, subdivision plat, sketch plan conference and initial presentation of application for subdivision plat approval under Town Code Chapter 101, subdivision of land to authorize a lot line alteration, compensating 2,500 square foot annexation parcels between Lot 33 and Lot 34 of Peacock Estates. In the rural countryside RC5 district, planning board processing as timely under Town Code and seeker. Okay.
Okay, my name is Charles Wiles. I'm also representing Ralph tonight. I have a letter just stating.
Okay. Great, thank you.
And I'd like to pass out the certificate at this time.
God bless.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. All knowledge.
That's just my,
Some of us are kind of stupid.
Okay.
All right, so my name is Charles Wiles, and coming to you guys for a lot line alteration. Well, to both of us, it's need-based, in our opinion. The subdivision was actually designed back in, say, the mid-'80s or so, '87, '86 or so. And Peacock Road and Eagle was put in two different phases. You had the Eagle Road, and then it came down to Peacock. But anyway, this part was developed a little bit later. So the road that's on Ralph Catella's property was put in as to clean up some of the rubble and some of the things from the road being put in Peacock.
Oh, is that thing working, that microphone?
I'm sorry, I was neglecting that. So anyway, so that road was put in back with the original developers, Peacock developers. And then when I purchased a lot about 10 years ago and started clearing it and developing it, I realized that the service road was on my property, but didn't think a lot about it because I thought, modern technology and everything, he'll simply move the road. Well, as I was starting to develop my lot and having some struggles, also got looking at it from a different vantage point, Ralph's situation, realized it would be very difficult for him to move that portion of the driveway, and realized back in the late 80s when they put that service road in, was really put in for many reasons, because there's quite a rock outcropping, like right here, that encouraged them to make that bend onto my property. So anyway, I would like to own more property in the front of my house, and Ralph would like to own that corner of my property, so we're going for a lot line alteration, or as we call it, a land swap. So, and then, well, it's equal in size. So, any questions?
Any questions?
No?
Seems pretty straightforward. Doesn't create any greater nonconformity of your lot since you were upzoned. And Ralph's obviously is big enough, it's a little more than 10 acres. No questions? What I will do then is read a resolution.
a couple of just modifications. One is you now have
The survey.
survey map, so you can insert the title, or John can insert the title. It's dated August 6th. The compensating, what were previously described as compensating 2,500 square foot annexation parcels, in fact, are compensating 1,315 square foot, line 4 of the resolution.
Oh,
Instead of 2,500, it's 1,315.
okay.
Yeah, that was my poor math before it, I
Just a
got a
rough
little
sketch,
ahead of
right?
myself.
And the timing will be 7:15 on
Okay. All righty then.
So could I request then a public hearing?
That's
That's what's going to be,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
The Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board hereby acts as follows. On the August 6, 2013 application by Charles Wiles and Ralph Catella for sketch plan review and subdivision plat approval under Town Code Chapter 101, subdivision of land, to authorize lot line alteration compensating 1,315 square foot annexation parcels between Lot 33 and Lot 34 of Peacock Estates in the rural countryside RC5 district, all is depicted on a surveyor's map entitled, and we have the title right here. Prepared by John Decker, LS, and dated August 6, 2013, and otherwise described in a short EAF and other supporting documentation. Waives the conduct of a separate sketch plan conference before the planning board and accepts the application at this time as adequate for planning board consultant and public review. Classifies the proposed action as described in the application as an unlisted action under secret, which coordinated environmental quality review is not required and will not be conducted. Delegates, planning board members, who wants to go? Richard?
Down the road.
I'll go. Richard and Jesse? To conduct the field visit to the subdivision site and report their observations at the time of public hearing. Refers the application to the Town Conservation Advisory Board for review and comment. Schedules a public hearing on the application for Monday, September 16th, 2013 at 7:15 p.m. and directs the clerk to provide or otherwise cause notice and posting thereof pursuant to the requirements set forth within Town Code, Chapter 101, Subdivision of Land. F, advises the applicant the draft of consolidation or merger deeds as will be required for recording in the Dutchess County Clerk's Office upon filing of the subdivision plat, if approved, should be prepared and submitted to the planning board for review as to its sufficiency.
Their sufficiency.
Yes. Okay. G, due to the limited nature of the matter subject to this application, including the absence of any proposed development and without prejudice to the planning board's consideration of any input received prior to or at the public hearing, authorizes the planning consultant to prepare working drafts of an EAF Part 2 negative declaration under seeker and coordinated approval resolution for review and consideration by the board when and if timely.
Strike including the absence of any proposed development.
Very good. Consider that stricken. Could I hear a motion to approve?
Done.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. What you'll want to do is coordinate with Richard and Jesse here on site visit.
Okay.
We're winding our way down. Okay, we did those. Okay. Last but not least,
Okay.
Rockledge, 492 Ackert Hook Road, pre-submission conference, special use permit and site plan approval. This agenda item is for the purpose of a pre-submission conference with the
You
planning
live
board in the matter of
down the street
proposed
right now
adaptive reuse of
from
the
this site,
Rockledge
so
Manor House, a National
get
Historic
in
District
before work or
property,
afterwards
and overall
you get in.
redevelopment of a
Lunchtime,
136
are you around
acre
lunch?
parcel in the rural countryside RC5 district as a country inn and master plan or club format
pretty
weekend
flexible,
vacation home
except for
non-gated community.
Thursday and Friday, I'm leaving.
Yeah, it won't be this week. Maybe next week or something. Okay. Very good. No
Yeah.
problem. Thanks, Josh.
I always sound like that. The session follows upon an earlier pre-submission meeting attended by the chairman, vice chairman, with Art and Charles Blockman, principal of CV Developers, and his planning consultant, Matthew Rudikoff. An overall presentation of the intended project will be made by the representatives of CV Developers, and input from the planning board is, as in the case of any pre-submission conference, sought concerning planning, zoning, and environmental issues and associated applications, procedures, and submission requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Matthew Rudikoff from Rudikoff Associates, the project planner for the Rockledge redevelopment project. We're here with the full development team, Charles Blakeman of CB Developers, Mark Graminsky, the project engineer, and George Rodenhausen, project counsel. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss this project with you. At this time, CB Developers are the contract vendee for the property, and as part of the due diligence they're undertaking on the project, the development team has been looking at the various issues which relate to both acquisition and development of the site and to the possible feasible uses of the site. I think we're familiar with where the site is on Ackert Hook Road, 0.8 miles due east of Route 9 and about 2.5 to 3 miles south of the light via Route 9 and Ackert Hook Road, and about 2.7 miles via Haggerty Hill Road to Route 9. It's the desire of the project sponsor to sort of get early planning board input on this matter before they proceed with the extensive effort necessary to prepare a full application. And as part of that, we've had a preliminary meeting with the ZEO initially, and then we, with project engineer Graminsky, had a follow-up meeting with Chairman Trimble and consultant Art Broad to get our ideas on our interpretation of the ordinance and getting early ideas about what the board's concerns and what the community's concerns might be in connection with the project. We looked at zoning, we looked at the site history, we looked at the existing information regarding natural resources, and we took that information and we sort of compiled what might be a feasible development area that we would consider. Within that development area, we have not at this time identified where things might be or what exactly kinds of uses would be, but really we're just trying to identify what portion of the site might be developable in terms of the natural resource and other constraints that exist. We certainly are looking fully at the adaptive reuse of all of the National Register buildings, the primary manor house, as well as the other contributing structures, as well as the other contributing features of the designation as a district to incorporate into the overall redevelopment and adaptive reuse. The site's in the town's multiple resource area, and of course is therefore also included in Article 4 of the Appendix 4 of the zoning ordinance. Interestingly, in our review of the history of the site, there were a number of residential transient uses over the history of the sites beginning in the mid-20th century. There was a Hydrology Hotel, which was a vegetarian hotel and resort. There was a camp called the Smoke Tree Ranch Club. Certainly we're all aware of the Maris Brothers Novitiate, Rhinebeck Country School, and of course most recently the Daytop. What is being proposed, or what's being considered, and what is interesting to the project developer is a development which would capitalize on the historic character of the property and historic uses as a weekend and vacation resort transient use. And what is being proposed is a 12-room Country Inn 1 on a 20-acre subdivided parcel, which is a specially permitted use in the RC5 zone. Appropriate accessory uses for that Country Inn 1, which are yet to be determined and are things we would like to discuss with you this evening. 49 units of condominiumized multifamily housing, again a permitted use under the RC5 zoning provision, according to a formula which is 4 acres for the first 5 dwelling units, and then 1 dwelling unit for each 2.5 acres after that, which results in 44.8 dwelling units, plus the 5 dwelling units is 49.8, but 49 dwelling units. In addition to the 49 units, which will be configured as either a master planned community or a club, a vacation and weekend home resort, the appropriate amenities that go along with that kind of usage. In the business of master planned communities and residential or weekend club type of communities, they tend to be highly amenitized communities, which are part of the attraction for the market for these kinds of units. And so what those amenities are, we have not fully discussed at this point, and is, again, will be something that we want to discuss with you this evening with the board. The other components of the project would be site infrastructure, obviously access roads and water and sewer facilities. Project engineer Grominski will discuss the status of the existing water plant and the existing sewer plant and their utility and usability and condition as it relates to the new development. So we have, again, a due diligence level of information regarding that subject, where we've contacted the existing sources of information that have records and have either operated or maintained those facilities and have sort of an initial working level understanding of how those infrastructure utilities can function for the proposed use. Of course, there would also be project site operation and maintenance facilities, both for the inn and for the master plan community. And there would also be a program as part of the amenities, but of trails and natural resource-based kinds of amenities. Those really are the proposed uses. As I said, these uses are permitted under the special permit provisions. And we understand that the uses are permitted under the special permit provisions, but of course are subject to a full review relative to the environmental suitability of the uses and the related environmental impacts of the uses. And it isn't, well, they are as of right permitted uses. They are obviously subject to all of the other ordinances of the town, which are listed in our package. What we found out, interestingly enough, was that the site is developed in a way where the natural resource issues have really allowed for an area of the site to be utilized for development. And what we've done is we performed an initial site walkover by my firm's biologist, Dr. Joseph Bridges, and we, of course, reviewed the biodiversity study of the town prepared by Hudsonia. Open space and recreation amenities are open for discussion with you this evening. The site has beautiful views from the manor house and from other portions of the site. There are water and wetland resources in the southeast portion of the site, and I will talk about those areas in a moment. And we also wanted to just simply address that the economic development and fiscal impact of this kind of project were initially looked at, and it was our sense that in proposing a weekend and vacation-oriented community, that is the kind of community which usually has the highest positive fiscal impacts, in that there are the related tax revenue generating capabilities of the development, with a low demand for community services, primarily low demand for public school children. It's interesting that when you have these weekend kinds of communities, the target market for these for this product is one that is a market that tends to own one or more recreational uses. They are up not an extensive period of time. They're not up every weekend. They have multiple locations that they go to, and that when they come up, they're looking at utilizing the community's commercial facilities, and therefore are a contributing factor in that. For discussion tonight, we have a couple of subjects we want to discuss, and this we'll get into right after Mark makes his discussion about the site infrastructure. We want to discuss the ability to continue to work with the town's consultants if we proceed with the next procedural steps and what they are. We want to talk about what some of the amenities are and what some of the issues are surrounding those uses. And we also want to talk about the format of the residential structures, which we are planning on being condominiums, and we haven't really yet designed what the historic buildings will be used for in terms of the site uses, or what the new buildings would be used for. So the whole configuration and layout of those condominium units are something we want to discuss how those residential units can be configured from the multiple family kinds of configurations that are referred to in the ordinance, as well as the possibility of more standalone kind of cottage condominium units on a common lot. So what we've done is we've identified the natural resource constraints of the property, and they are primarily indicated in excuse me, indicated on the map that was submitted to you as being the wetlands and watercourse limitations, as well as what's indicated as ROC, which are slopes and talus habitats. And when we eliminated those areas, we were left with a development area of approximately, sorry, I forgot the number, 55 acres? About 55 acres of development area, and that consists really primarily of the existing developed portions of the site, which include the manor house, and the other contributing structures are the stone barn, the cottage, and another guest accessory building. This is a non-contributing, in terms of the National Register District, facility that was built as a residential facility, and this is the entrance cottage. We do not know how we were going to use this development area, but this is the area within which development would occur. I think, Mark, if you want to talk a little bit about the site infrastructure, sure, and maybe that would be appropriate at this point, and then we can get into our discussion and, of course, answer the board's questions.
With regard to the infrastructure, I'll just start. It's basically what exists on the site now, data, provides a basis for future development of the property. I'll discuss. I was looking to see if it was your name. I'll discuss access.
I think you may be turned off. I mean, not that I'm trying to make a, but,
No, he's on. It's just on.
is on? Oh, yeah, you're, okay.
Turned on.
Now you're turned on.
I don't want to go there. Do I need to be closer to the mic? Yes.
Okay, now we're all turned on.
I'll just start with access. There's 2 existing access points on Acre Hook Road, one in this location and one further to the north. In reviewing, actually taking a look at frontage all along Acre Hook Road, I met with the town highway superintendent with regard to, options and, various sites that would be suitable for access, not exactly knowing how the project would evolve for future development, but, it may be a use of a combination of the existing access points and development of new access points. Too difficult to ascertain at this time, but just wanted to have that, that flexibility for this particular application. So, in summary on that is there are several feasible points that would be usable for the site for access. With regard to water and sewer, there are existing facilities for both water and sewer. There's central water and central sewer on the property. Water supply obviously is by well. There is infrastructure that has been in place and developed that is in need of some upgrade, and the extent of that would depend on the extent of the development for this particular project. But the basis for the water system is there. There may be a need for improvement for storage, for example. There's a elevated storage tank that sits right there. It's right on the high point of the property. Provides gravity feed to a portion of the site. There's other sections of the site that you need to boost up the water pressure for the various buildings. The suitability of the existing pipes and services is unknown, but it's been there for quite a while, so it would probably require upgrade. Depending on the the extent of the development, obviously to the existing structures, and then development of new water service lines and water mains, and possibly fire flow to any new structures that would be proposed for the site. With regard to sanitary sewer, there's a existing sewage treatment plant. It's located right here, right near Acre Hook Road. And if, as you travel on Acre Hook Road, you can see there's actually a plaque with a speedies permit that's posted right on Acre Hook Road, which is the discharge point for the sewage treatment plant. It goes into this wetland pond area, and then ultimately discharges. That water course continues to discharge under the highway. The current plant is actually in excellent working condition. There are some re-permitting and upgrading that would be required with DEC for the permit. It's currently permitted for, I think the speedies permit is somewhere around 27,000 gallons a day. And once again, depending on the nature of this project development, that may require modification with the appropriate reviewing and approving agencies, New York State DEC and Dutchess County Department of Health. Also, just back to the water system, that too may require a new water supply application with New York State DEC and approval by New York State Department of Health. But in summary, like I said, the basis of on-site water supply and disposal of a treatment and disposal of the wastewater exist, and it seems to be, a great starting point for this particular project. That's it.
We would like to hear your questions or your comments.
Well, I guess,
I'll be glad to start.
please do.
You talk about condominiumizing the 49 units. Do you have any flavor whether they're going to be one contiguous structure or going to be 49 unique structures or some part, or aren't you there yet?
Well, the ordinance allows for a maximum of 6 units in a structure. So that's up at the upper end, that there can be no more than 6 units in the new structures, and we would certainly tend to comply with that. And what the distribution of the other units would be in how many other new structures, we would like them to range down to even potentially some standalone cottage-type condominium units.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is I have a concern. We have another applicant that's doing a similar type approach with one piece of property. And I'm concerned about the sewage situation because in this town of Rhinebeck, the town of Rhinebeck inherited a sewage system that broke down amongst private homes in a sewer, in a community. The town of Rhinebeck bought the bullet on that one. It cost the town a lot of money. Basically, the sewage system failed, the owner walked away from it, okay? I want to make sure that the town is protected legally so that we don't get another one of these disasters, and especially when you're talking multiple units. If it's one building and your own sewage system, that's like a private home with its own sewage system. But once you start talking about multiple owners of properties in this condominium complex, it opens a whole new legal thing, and I want to make crystal clear that this town is protected, that we never get stuck with somebody walking away from a disaster again. So I'm telling you up front, that's really all.
The other structure down by the river, that was all individual houses, right, with a big organization?
40 homes, I think, 40 homes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The concern is noted.
Yeah, I just want you guys to know up front that I want to protect the town of Rhinebeck
I understand.
completely.
Like the state of repair or disrepair of this particular system is quite different than Vanderburg Cove. I mean, I had the opportunity to do some work on the sewer collection system on Vanderburg Cove, and it was just...
Oh, I understand.
After it was fixed or before?
Well, I just want to make sure that the town is protected completely.
I understand.
And that the onus goes on the developer to make sure that that doesn't happen. And of course, in concert with our lawyer and all the other things.
Excuse me, Charles, but as part of a condo association, they would have to put reserves in place, monthly, for anything that happens in the complex. So they're going to have money in reserve from day one that goes for sewer, water, all those things that could go wrong.
Yeah, I just want...
Yeah, because they don't want to be, one owner doesn't want to be stuck with another owner saying, I'm not paying, there has to be ample money.
Yeah.
Reserves to take care of those kind of things.
Because unfortunately, there's no municipal service available. If that was there, then you wouldn't have a problem. We wouldn't have a problem. We'd be protected.
Do you have any ideas where you would actually be placing these condos at this point, other than that big section?
Well, certainly not where any of the existing historic buildings are, because they are going to remain. But I think we are going to get into a very sophisticated site design process when a project architect is on board, and we'll be laying out a plan that will both minimize disturbance for the purposes of maintaining the biodiversity of the site and for maintaining or minimizing any kind of fragmentation. So I think that at our next step of the process, we'd come back with certainly a conceptual plan of where we think the units would be and in what kind of configuration the units would be, and also with intended uses for the existing structures, none of which we have at this point.
Oh, so the Country Inn is not being, one of the existing structures is not going to be the Country Inn?
Be the manor.
Well, there's a logic to the manor house being the Country Inn, but that has not been decided, nor has what the 20-acre lot would be that would be required for the Country Inn. So the configuration of the 20-acre lot and which buildings would be what, we really haven't done. We're really here before you discussing whether the uses are appropriate, what the concerns are, like, for example, with the sewage, are at the site, and then our next step would be to come before you with a concept of use of the existing buildings and generic locations of the existing, of the new structures. So that will really be the next phase.
I'm just concerned because it seems like the altitude seems a little bit high there, even though it's not. You've got the steep part in it where the rock ledge and talus is, but where you're planning to develop, there is still some gradients there and some pretty high ground. So I'm just not sure how you're going to locate all these condos.
Well, that's something that really needs to be, we recognize the town's ordinances regarding slopes and regarding the biodiversity and the protected habitats and constraints. So that'll be something we have to work around. And, you know, we're looking at some sophisticated designs where maybe at the edge of the steep slopes we'd have something up to the edge of the steep slopes, taking advantage of overlooks. And do you have anything else you want to say about the topography, Mark?
No, I mean, it's just, obviously, all, site, Sharon, all site layout and, buildings and road infrastructure, that will consider, the existing topographic features. The idea is to utilize, the beauty of the property with, the existing structures and any of the proposed new structures, and not to and to create something that works with the property and is not we're not constrained by steep slopes and the other features. Those will be taken into consideration with the layout.
Because I know we like the conservation subdivision where they're all grouped together, but this lot seems like it's going to be a little difficult to do that. So we'll have to see.
Yes.
I just had a couple of questions. I guess the density is based on net density, Mark?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing, just as a definition, multifamily dwellings are defined as 3 families or more. So in other words, if you're doing a condominium concept, you can't do single, detached, one-family dwellings.
Really?
Yeah. According to our definitions.
Under that definition.
Yeah. Multifamily is defined as 3 families or more.
You have to use at least three units in a building.
And I think no more than 6, as you pointed out,
You're in that 3 to 6
per
range.
single structure.
Otherwise, what, you'd have to go for another subdivision to be able?
Right, you'd have to subdivide off for single-family.
So even if a unit was a condominium unit, so it wasn't a subdivided unit.
It doesn't, that doesn't come into the definition. It's just under multifamily dwelling, it's 3 families, 3 family units or more, 3 dwelling units or more.
Can you build them as 3 and then just buy all 3 and consolidate them?
I don't know.
It's only
You'd lose the density.
It's only the multiple family section that's getting authorization, that's getting you the density you want.
Right.
However, if you were to break it off into single-family lots, then you're subject to the RC5 requirements.
Right.
So you have to abide by whatever those minimum criteria or
Right.
maximum criteria are for the multiple family.
Right.
And so if we, in our overall sort of planning of this master plan community, as related to economic viability of the master plan community concept or the club concept, is there any opportunity to make a presentation to the board on that subject where there might be an opportunity to consider a waiver or a variance to that requirement to fit in with other aspects of the plan concept?
These are specific, basically definitions and conditions of using multifamily housing for residential use. That's what it is. So.
Can you apply for a variance for something like that?
I don't believe that's an area variance or a use variance, so I don't believe so. It's a condition, it's a special permit condition, as opposed to a bulk or area regulation. The only other way, if you wanted, this would certainly further complicate things, and the density would be reduced if there was a portion of the property you wanted to do multifamily on, and then a portion you wanted to do single-family. You'd have to subdivide those single-family units out. And of course, then you'd have to cluster them, because that's the conservation subdivision concept. I mean, it could become incredibly complex.
It's going to wipe out the density.
It would wipe out your density, yeah.
It would
Exactly.
wipe out, you would lose your density.
The definition of what intermediate means, how they have to be connected, one on top of the other, or
No, it's basically, no.
how much do they have to be connected?
That's a good question for the building inspector.
Right.
I face that one quite frequently,
A
Charles.
300-foot-long breezeway.
What does the breezeway connection mean, or?
But I'll just read the definition, and then this is basically, actually, it would be a ZEO determination. Multifamily dwelling, a building containing separate living units for 3 or more families, including apartment buildings, townhouses, row houses, regardless of the form of ownership, condominium, fee simple, or rental. So, that's what it is.
And the question is how a building, how cohesive a mass does that have to be? Or can it in fact be appendages, linked appendages?
I would assume there may be something in the building code, something like that. Actually, I would imagine this is more of a ruling for the zoning enforcement officers. It's a
I recall
definition
in
of the
another
zoning
community
law.
that issue going to the State Building Codes Council about 30 years ago.
Yeah, well, maybe it's time to do it again. But anyway, just so you understand that that's what the current situation is.
And just
So I think how we'll leave it is the element of having that, of having there be a product, a standalone, not quite standalone, but a condominium product where there is a sense of it being an individualized place for a home is an important part of the marketing concept of the master plan community. So in our design, we'll look at what ways we can try to make a connection that might satisfy this requirement. But that's why we're asking, is that it's a business aspect of this type of a development. That there be some units that maintain some character that is standalone. So thank you for that answer, and we'll explore that further in our next stage of design.
In our initial discussions regarding this, just for the board's information, what I think the perception that I have here is that there's a proposal here that's plausible under the zoning requirements of the community, zoning and other requirements of the community. The applicant right up front, the applicant is immediately taking into account the environmental constraints of the property, as pointed out, identifying the developable area, and not coming in with saying, well, we've got 136 acres, it's a clean slate in which to do development. They're saying we've got a 55-acre portion that's potentially suitable for development. I say it's plausible under zoning. It needs to be proven, however, that in terms of design and the technical development of the plan, that it's permissible, that it can be permitted under town requirements, county requirements, state requirements, etc. There's a comprehensive list that's been provided of permitting requirements. I think it's under the title Permitting Reconnaissance. Offhand, other than detailing that list, I think the only thing I would add to that, and the developer has already pointed this out, is the need for AG approvals, etc. And I think that that whole package of approvals and requirements and guarantees that they provide would need to be emphasized in an application, because this is a development that in form would be different than the community has seen in the past.
There are two more things I think I need to point out here. Once you get under the special permit considerations for multiple family, we haven't done, I just happened upon these. Number 3, under multiple family dwelling new construction in this district. In zoning districts where multiple family dwellings are authorized by special use permit, the maximum number of units within a multifamily shall be 6, including one unit, which shall be set aside as affordable, as defined and regulated under the Town of Rhinebeck Affordable Housing Program regulations. And the multifamily dwelling shall be constructed to resemble a single-family dwelling, as illustrated by example in the photograph below, of a 4-unit multifamily dwelling designed to resemble a single-family farmhouse. So those are the conditions under the special permit for multifamily by new construction.
In the affordable housing,
The town does not currently have a program The town is developing a program, however, and you may find that the program that's being developed may not require the on-site delivery of those housing units, but in fact payment into a fund or something of that sort.
Oh, the zoning ordinance makes reference to that.
Yeah, it mentions a program, but the program hasn't been established yet.
Or maybe if you do a couple of affordable housing units, they might let you sneak that one single unit in down the end there.
But is that affordable unit part of your condition of the 49?
Yes.
I thought don't we have to adopt something before?
Yeah, the town, yeah, that's what I'm saying, the program doesn't exist at this point.
So it's not one of the requirements right now, it's in the works.
Well, we believe the town board's working on
Yeah,
something, right?
it does say, the condition is that one unit shall be set aside as affordable as defined and regulated under the Town of Rhinebeck Affordable Housing Program regulations found in Article 5, Section 12563 of this chapter. So it does refer to something in the zoning law. We have to take a look at that.
And that section of the zoning law does include the reference to a contribution to a housing trust fund that needs to be developed by the town board.
Right.
That needs to be developed. The only thing that gets me here is it says that one unit shall be set aside. It doesn't say should be set aside, may be set aside, or something else. It says shall be set aside. So there may be some, the town may have to, as it does the affordable housing program, may have to review some of the other conditions they have in other parts of the zoning law just to make sure everything's consistent.
Something in place now because they've already done it with the...
That was a
I think,
special agreement just
in addition, Mark, in addition to the, the infrastructure considerations that you noted, as this
A little good template.
application evolves, if it does, I think we clearly want a traffic study. That's one of the, those upfront items that I think, once a development program is established, it's one of those upfront items that should be accomplished. Because if there are going to be any, quote, neighborhood issues associated with the development, it's going to revolve that subject of traffic.
And we're expecting we'll be using the new EAF over 2013.
Yeah, I'm afraid you probably will.
Yes.
Well, the long form isn't really that much more extensive. The short form is way more extensive. But,
Do you have any more information than I do as to when it's going to be effective, or if it's going to be...
2013.
Are you sure it's not going to be delayed again?
No.
I mean, it appears likely at this point in time.
It will be delayed.
There's no handbook, right?
That's the history.
Yeah, I'm guessing April of next year would be early. But
So then
by the time you get, who knows?
Well, that's, of course, what we want to end this discussion with, is what would be the next procedural steps, or would be to proceed.
Sketch plan conference, an actual sketch plan conference with the board based upon your conceptual layout plan, I would think, right?
And so,
Yeah.
So a sketch plan conference is after the submission of a full application?
No.
It's prior to that.
Basically,
Based on the concept.
yeah, the concept plan that you talked about earlier.
What do you need with the sketch plan conference application?
Nothing, a drawing.
Right.
Just you don't need any other wetland stuff?
No.
It would be well just to sort of know where they are, so you're not going there.
Yeah.
But you don't need all the detailed information at that point.
Layouts of units is what we're talking
Right, and some ideas of,
Conceptual site layout, and obviously, Charles, an indication of, maybe an indication of the configuration of a typical unit or a typical
Right.
cluster of units or whatever.
architectural considerations, nothing you're going to be held to, just so that you come to talk to us and we talk to you. The idea of the sketch plan is so that you can then go back and then actually put together an application that we're then in a position to accept for review, that it meets the zoning requirements, meets all that, and we can then proceed with the review.
Will these amenities have pool house, tennis courts, all that stuff?
I'm not sure we know that.
Yeah, I mean, typically.
I mean, does this not also fall under the new law that was just passed? That takes your contribution to the rec fund and reduces it down to $1,000 a unit instead of $3,000?
It certainly could. It certainly could.
So, I mean, that's a
But part of that
consideration.
too, Richard, is consideration of, is it open to the public or is it just for private use and things like that? I guess there are gradations of
My
consideration.
interpretation was not. I was very, very thorough with looking into it. The fact that they provided their tenants, their residents,
Right, that's
space to
correct.
exercise and recreation meant that they wouldn't be using the town
Right.
So therefore, if you have the amenities for them, it's, you know, it's a
That's correct.
consideration.
You're looking at, in my words, a resort environment as opposed to a community.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really what you're.
Well, you actually have two different things, you're saying, is a master plan community or a resort type. So you haven't made that decision? Isn't to me, it seems different. One seems like...
It's more like a vacation home, but
Right.
you cannot restrict the person from buying and saying it's a living all year long, but it's probably not. If you can market it, the resort living, and I think somebody who lives all year long will probably buy their own.
So they're not exclusive? It could be one or the other? Because it says or. It says in here, it says 49 master plan community
Supposed to mean the same.
or club type vacation weekend.
I think it could be.
Or is it and?
You know, like, it should be in the same vein. I mean, plan community for vacation home.
I think we're envisioning them, it's really more a form of the organization of the entity and the naming of the entity, but in terms of the uses and in terms of the market for them, they'd be the same.
Well, I would think that they would be different, because if I'm thinking of master plan community, I'm living there full time, where if I'm thinking of club type vacation, I'd only come on weekends, so I wouldn't be using the, the structure and as much.
Isn't it more so just a master planned resort and vacation community?
Yeah.
They're really meant to be combined terms.
Exactly.
And many of around the country, many of the master plan communities are very weekend and vacation oriented to that market.
Right.
So I think it's more of a terminology at this stage. But I think the fact that is the more crucial fact is that they tend to be highly amenitized. So you point about the kinds of recreational amenities that will be there, natural resource amenities as well as development amenities. And because there's an inn and a residential community, how the inn's accessory uses and how the residential community's accessory uses service each other and satisfy both needs is something we haven't really fully explored yet. But certainly that's something that we have to explore. That would come in the sketch plan conversation.
Right, exactly. The idea of what you want to do with a sort of master plan community has to fit into the components of what our zoning law permits to do, that you can put together what you want, but it has to be based upon what our zoning law permits in this town.
But it's interesting that for example, in the country, in one definition, there's a list of accessory use, typical accessory uses.
Right.
And including other,
Yes.
other low-impact accessory uses.
Oh, yeah.
But in the multifamily home kind of development, there isn't really a listing of what kinds of uses would be allowed accessory to that kind of use. So if it were a larger multifamily home community, there would be a golf course associated with that kind of
Well, basically what you would then have to do is you would have to apply for a golf course, especially when you put in a golf course separately. Because the multifamily residential housing, there's nothing within our zoning law that then says within a certain residential development, you can also then, I mean, a golf course is not considered a typical accessory use to residential dwellings. So once again, what you'd have to do is look at our zoning law. Okay, how are you going to put a golf course in here along with residences?
First of all, make it clear, we're not.
Yeah, right, you don't have enough room for a golf course.
So that was really just more of an example. But to get to an example where there might be the kinds of uses we're talking about, there's certain kinds of indoor recreational uses such as a spa or a pool, those kinds of uses are considered accessory to a residential, multifamily residential development. So what that program of uses are is something that we're still working on.
And that's something we'd have to explore within what our zoning law refers to or considers to be accessory, traditional accessory uses for residential use, for residential developments.
So you couldn't do a mini golf with a windmill and...
Well, you can do that in Country Inn 1. You can put a par 3 golf course.
We're not considering that.
Not even room for that.
Well, it's high enough they can do a driving range and drive them over.
Yeah, the Country Inn, 1 does allow a number of accessory recreational uses. Mark?
Michael, a question with regard to sketch plan. Procedurally, the next step of the project would be sketch plan application. Just maybe some input from the board of the level of detail they would be looking for in the sketch plan? Is it, would there be, on-site delineation of wetlands? Would it be, detailed topography? Is the development of a sketch plan with using the base information here as a basis of that, is that sufficient for this board to?
Do we have a list?
Yeah, we do have a list. I was just going to go look at that. Good point.
And Jeff usually produces some great maps with all the wetlands stuff on it because he's got it all marked out, so there's no cheating there. Yeah.
Let's just see if I can find this.
Once again, those are, they're generalized
Okay.
maps.
Right, but this list right here asks you to identify all the stone walls, steep slopes, a significant growth, trees, stuff like that.
Basically, this is, I'll just read the definition of sketch plan. Sketch plan conference. The sketch plan conference between the planning board and the applicant shall be held to initially review the basic site design concept and generally determine the extent of site plan review necessary for the intended project and the information to be required on the site plan and accompanying reports. At the sketch plan conference, the applicant shall provide a written statement and/or rough sketch describing what is proposed, including an indication of all existing structures and uses, if any, on the site. The planning board shall additionally employ the sketch plan conference as an opportunity to discuss with the applicant site plan design criteria as set forth in Article 7, Section F, the complementary design standards adopted by the town board and considered an integral part of this zoning law, and the extent of the secret review process for the application. The sketch plan conference shall not be deemed to be a preliminary or other approval of the proposed project.
The sketch plan, Mark, in response to your question, I think the sketch plan really is a conceptual site layout plan, above surface site layout plan, so you don't have much work to do, within the, of that 55-acre development envelope that you've identified.
Okay.
That's what that would be the subject of the sketch plan conference. And as I suggested, enough of typical representations of how you're going to cluster the housing units or whatever, and how you're going to, what the proposed uses are going to be of the existing buildings on site, so that the board can begin to talk about applying the design principles in the zoning law and all of those kinds of.
Would it be helpful to discuss phasing, if indeed that's what you gentlemen are going to be doing? In other words, you're going to do this, the main building in X, Y, and Z, and then your next phase will be condominiums. You might be able to just tell us what you think you want to do relative to that.
I think also, since there's a great deal of existing information on the biologic and natural resources of the site, and since that's going to go into our building locations, we would probably want to show something that depicts how the design reflects our understanding of minimizing fragmentation.
Sure. Well, the fuller you can do that, the better.
Right,
Absolutely.
So some indication of how that data was put into the design process.
The closer you can get to what you want to do in terms of placement and integration on the property, how the things are going to work together, the better, because that's part of the whole design process, and it's going to make it easier for you to put together an application that's going to be more, acceptable and easier for us to review.
My point with respect to my comment to Mark is I think there isn't much further analysis or representation that's required at the sketch plan phase of the nature of the sanitary sewage, the water supply.
Right.
Those are details that have come down the line.
Well, it's basically taking what we have here.
Exactly.
And
Yeah, I think
providing a schematic layout.
Yeah, you've got
For consideration.
Right. What are you going to do where? What are you going to do with the manor building? You sort of really have to kind of nail down what you want to do with it. Yeah, things like that.
And along with, because part of this is subdivision application, so, there's-
Exactly.
There's a.
Where's the 20-acre parcel going to be?
Where's the 20-acre parcel going to go?
And you would include, obviously, circulation, and would you include parking, location of parking?
To the extent you can do that, I mean, the more detail like that you can give, probably the more effective the sketch plan conference is going to be in terms of you putting your application together to come before us.
And then I think your code in the sketch plan section calls for the full application to come in within 3 months after that, for some reason.
And that's waivable.
Yeah, that's, actually, I don't, that's,
It's either 3
Yeah.
months or 6 months.
yeah, it says 3 calendar months.
Yeah, but that's extendable or
Should be made,
waivable or extendable by the board.
yeah.
Something we discussed.
Right.
Oh, sure.
A lot of work to do.
Well, a full EAF
Yeah.
is part of a full application.
Exactly.
So that EAF is.
Yeah. The other thing one can do is just continue the sketch plan conference to another date, so that basically that 3-month clock doesn't start. At this next meeting, you may decide that, you know, you may want to continue. This is sort of a sketch plan. This is a pre-submission meeting. At the sketch plan conference, depending on how far we get with that and how comfortable you are and how comfortable we are, you may just want to continue it. So you could just do the next meeting, and just as we did with someone else, if we have enough information, then they can just roll over into the, you know, presentation of the application and things like that. But at least you don't start that 3-month clock and get yourself necessarily boxed in.
And so I think, Mr. Chairman, you had mentioned that in the sketch plan review, one of the objectives is to sort of define what needs to get done under seeker. Is that primarily procedurally or
That's
sort of
not,
substantively?
well, procedurally, you know what we're going to have to do.
This one's a slam dunk.
Yeah.
You know, the sketch plan article reads, you know, what further information is going to be required under sketch plan, under site plan, et cetera. Here, it's a slam dunk. You know, under site plan, full information is required, and under seeker, obviously, we've got a type 1 action, and everything that relates to the board's consideration of a type 1 action is going to apply here. Once we get enough of a handle on the scope of the project, then the board can, you know, define agencies and is willing to take on the lead agency status if the other agencies allow and all that sort of thing, as you heard some of the other discussion this evening. So that, I mean, that's the secret position right now. You got a type 1 action, it's going to be subject to coordinated review, and we've got to collectively define who we're going to send out an NOI to.
What is the board's policy with regard to continuing access to the board's consultants?
Once we've accepted the application for review and that's underway, as long as there's sufficient escrow, because you have to pay when you consult with then we find that works very well. It speeds things along very often. A lot of the things between engineers, things like that, are things that if you bring it to the planning board, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you guys can settle a lot of that stuff between yourselves and then bring those resolutions to the planning board, I think it speeds the process up. I think it can cut down on cost. I think it's an effective way to go.
And as policy, you can have pre-submission access to the consultants, provided you have dollars in escrow.
Right.
So can that occur between sketch and the full application? Or is it
Yes.
okay.
As long as we have a executed escrow account and sufficient money in that just to pay for the consultant's time, our consultant's time. Yeah.
Yeah, after sketch, though, you know, it's important to have that sketch plan conference with the board. But that's the same way in which the Grassmere project was handled.
And that can be scheduled on the same 2-week prior to a meeting submission?
Yes, yes.
The thing about the looking like a single-family house, three units being one building, is that, I mean, it's not visible from the street.
It was, the thinking behind there,
Really makes a difference. I mean, because environmentally, if you want to save more trees, like have one big house and have multiple little houses next to each other.
well, I guess the thinking was, and I'm speculating, is that they wanted multifamily housing in a rural area to look more like one big family. And I think it was principally an aesthetic determination as opposed to anything else.
But is there an argument for it not being visible from the road?
No, no. Unfortunately, it's not set up that way, and the planning board's not given the flexibility under those conditions to waive those conditions under those particular circumstances.
The illustration in the ordinance that where it addresses that looking like a single-family home shows sort of a colonial-style roof frame farmhouse.
Yep.
Certainly at the Rock Ledge, as evidenced by the name, these are stone structures.
Right.
And so this one structure could be something in design that's more in keeping with what's off the site.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. You'd really try to maintain some sort of consistency, some sort of coherence with the existing design structure on the property.
Precisely.
No question.
Anything else, guys?
That's it for me.
Thank you. Mr. Romano?
Any comments from you?
This is a huge project. I think, as it's proposed, would be a major change for that neighborhood, that environment. So we have a lot of pencil sharpening to do to try to figure this out. I can draw maps, give you overlays that are different from what you've seen online. Each one apart, I'll show you just steep slopes, I'll show you just the vertical pools, the wetland, the associated buffers. I would suggest that, when you discuss escrow, we'll have that assessment, and then you engage, Hudsonia in that habitat assessment. So we'll come in and do the specifics to the wildlife that's there.
So you're suggesting that they be involved on a review
As
capacity?
a consultant, yes. Right, because it is a big change for that environment to put in 50 more units. And oftentimes, the maps don't really get down to the specifics of what wildlife lives on that property. And we have extensive wildlife in that area. There's a national heritage district just on the southern end. It just butts on the southern end of your property is where the sewage treatment plant enters into. So we would ask a lot of questions about what's going into that plant, the effect on that other parcel. What kind of migratory birds go through. So it's not just about, trees and wetlands. There is significant wildlife assessment that should be done.
Yeah, I believe that's actually one of the supplementary regulations, a requirement for site plan.
But as we mentioned, our biologists have already done a preliminary sidewalk, and we're certainly planning on looking more extensively.
And mostly the biologists look, our experience has been they look for endangered or protected species, and they see whether or not Indiana bats are there, or whether Atlantic turtles are there. They don't normally go into all the other species that are there.
What are we required to have an applicant do? What are we required to have an applicant go through as far as
Let's
wildlife?
see if I can find that. I know it's in here. Okay. Habitat and natural resource management. Purpose. Intent, applicability, use of the habitat assessment process is mandatory for all subdivisions, special use permits, uses requiring site plan approval, variances, or other town development reviews. So it would be required for this.
Well, what does that mean? What's required? A full habitat assessment? Isn't that a year-long project?
I would have to read what the process is, but it's whatever the process defined here is, yes, that's what's required.
Well, if it's similar to what we're doing for the proposed park.
Yes, it is.
Mazzarella Park, it was a year-long process.
Yeah, I mean, every season has to be
Right.
touched and inspected.
And yes,
Well, it depends whether Hudsonia went through there when they mapped. If they did, through that site, they might have a lot of that information already.
I don't know if they did or not.
So potentially, they would just have to verify the information that Hudsonia has already collected.
Yes, potentially. Depends on what they did in the original mapping.
Well, we indicated in our packet that we do a full habitat assessment.
Right.
Right.
We're expecting that, and we've done that, and bridges.
I only brought it up because of the time, because I know there's a lot of time invested in it.
Yeah.
Which was 3 months, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty funny, isn't it?
Well, Hudsonia's pretty smart. They can go through there fairly quickly.
Pretty expensive, too.
So I guess, any more questions, anything more from us, or anything more questions, anything?
Access?
I beg pardon?
Mike, just to ask a quick question about, it's only Ackerville Road here, and I'm just going by what we're considering with Grasmere,
Mhm.
that there needs to be access on a county road or a state road? So
I-
that doesn't apply here?
Different, no, the difference
Right,
between a country
right.
in one and a country in two.
Is significant. First of all, the country in one needs 20 acres, a country in two needs 250 acres, for example.
So that one of the conditions, they don't have to have.
Correct. It's different access. It's a different access requirement. It's less stringent access requirement.
Much smaller project.
Yeah. Thank you. It sounds like a really great project. It really does. We don't want to scare you off and everything. But no, it really does sound like a good project and a very interesting use for this property,
Those
so.
little small frogs, the silver ones.
Woody? Second. All in favor? At 9:36, we stand adjourned. It feels like 12.
It feels like 12.